Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Chipman. I'm an assistant professor at Syracuse University. I'm working on this project with Mark Laura from the University of Illinois, and the title is Navigating Disturbance Regimes in the New Arctic. Both Mark and I have been very interested for most of our careers in understanding disturbance. Mark uses remote sensing approaches such as satellite imagery and hyperspectral drone data to understand disturbance across different spatial scales. I'm a terrestrial paleoecologist, and I use lake sediment cores to reconstruct climate, fire, and permafrost degradation over long time scales. And so we decided to do this project to integrate those two approaches, both the space for time and the time for space approach, to ultimately assimilate that data into a model of landscape evolution that seeks to understand how different disturbance processes such as fire, permafrost degradation, and shrub encroachment impact the landscape and ultimately impact Arctic communities. And so we use three different approaches in this project that we've proposed. The first is a remote sensing approach, which will help resolve decadal scale land cover changes. So things like thermokarst, thermal erosion, and shrub expansion in these Arctic landscapes, and deriving that information using remotely sensed data. We'll also focus in on getting new paleo records from lake sediment cores to reconstruct fire regimes, thermal erosion, and vegetation change on millennial timescales. And finally, we'll collect chronosequence data in the field to measure vegetation, above and below ground nutrients, trace gas fluxes, and different estimates of land cover change from drone imagery in order to understand how these processes differ or how these measurements differ in different types of disturbed Arctic landscapes. Our project is focused in on two different field sites in Alaska. So one being the North Slope, which has a gradient of permafrost degradation and climate, and then the Noatak River Valley, which we plan to go to next year, which has a gradient in thermal erosion, climate, as well as fire on the landscape. And so by using these two study regions, we're hoping to capture a gradient in both climate and fire, as well as permafrost degradation and land cover to maximize what we can get out of this data. We have several expected outcomes. First, we plan to obviously derive new empirical disturbance data, both on spatial and temporal scales. We plan to generate permafrost vulnerability maps for 18 Alaskan villages, and we're very interested in doing educational outreach and training opportunities, especially for rural areas and indigenous high schools in order to train them on drone technology and ways for observing the landscape. So thank you very much.